What if everything we believe about ancient history is backwards? What if the monuments that dot our planet, those massive stone structures we call temples, tombs, and calendars, were never built to commemorate the past, but to prepare for a future we're only now beginning to understand? Deep beneath the windswept plains of Salisbury, where ancient chalk meets endless sky, the stones wait in their eternal circle, keeping secrets older than human memory. What rises from this sacred ground appears to be a monument, weathered by millennia, photographed by millions, explained by scholars as temple, tomb, calendar. But these familiar descriptions mask a truth so profound. It rewrites not only our understanding of the past, but our place in a cosmic story that began long before the first human ever walked this earth. Because Stonehenge was never built for us. It was built by something far older, far stranger, designed not to mark the passage of time, but to summon intelligences whose presence has shaped human destiny from the shadows of our earliest awakening. The stone circle that rises from the Salisbury Plain like the vertebrae of some ancient being buried beneath the land reveals itself, when examined with precision, to be more than construction. It is contact made manifest in megalithic form. The earthworks carved into the chalk speak in geometric languages, recognizable not to human eyes, but to minds trained to see meaning in mathematical perfection. The bluestones, hauled across impossible distances from the hills of Wales, were chosen not for their beauty or availability, but for their acoustic properties, their ability to ring like bells, to resonate at frequencies that transform solid stone into instruments of communication. Sound becomes vibration, vibration becomes information, and information becomes the medium through which terrestrial consciousness touches something vast and incomprehensible, watching from beyond the veil of stars. But here is what the archaeologists will not tell you, what the guidebooks omit, what the university textbooks carefully avoid. The massive sarsen stones that form the outer circle and inner horseshoe represent engineering that defies every explanation offered by conventional archaeology. These monuments to impossible precision were not raised by tree trunks and hemp rope. They were not dragged by thousands of workers across the English countryside. They were not positioned through trial and error by Bronze Age tribes with primitive tools. They were erected through the application of technologies that modern science can barely comprehend, let alone replicate. The trilithons stand as doorways, aligned not just to solar events, but to cosmic coordinates that track the movements of celestial bodies whose significance extends far beyond earthly seasons. Because what appears to be astronomical observation reveals itself, under deeper examination, to be something else entirely. A synchronization protocol designed to link Earth-based consciousness with intelligences whose home lies not among the stars we can see, but in dimensions that exist parallel to our own perception of reality. Consider the precision required. The heelstone marks the exact point where the midsummer sun rises. Not approximately, not close enough for Bronze Age purposes, but with mathematical exactitude that rivals modern surveying equipment. The spacing between the trilithons creates acoustic resonance chambers that amplify specific frequencies while dampening others. The weight distribution of the massive lintels creates harmonic nodes that vibrate in patterns that match the electromagnetic signatures of distant pulsars. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is engineering by minds that understood the relationship between matter, consciousness, and cosmic mechanics in ways that our civilization is only beginning to rediscover. The ancient texts that survive from cultures worldwide speak with startling consistency of beings who descended from the heavens, carrying knowledge too vast for human comprehension. The Book of Enoch describes the Watchers, entities who fell not from divine grace, but from orbital positions, bringing with them understanding of celestial mechanics, metallurgy, agriculture, and the sacred geometries that unlock the hidden potentials of human consciousness. These were not mythological figures trapped in primitive folklore. They were contact specialists, advanced beings whose mission involved the careful guidance of human development through strategic intervention disguised as divine revelation. Stonehenge represents the culmination of this ancient alliance, a permanent installation designed to maintain communication between Earth and intelligences whose agenda required the long-term cultivation of human awareness. The legends that speak of giants moving stones from distant lands preserve, in metaphorical form, the memory of construction techniques that involve not human labor, but the application of technologies that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, reducing the massive weight of stone to manageable proportions through the controlled application of electromagnetic fields, making the impossible routine, making the supernatural technological. The giants of myth were not creatures of folklore. They were the closest description human language could provide for beings whose physical characteristics exceeded normal human parameters by such a degree that they appeared supernatural to observers whose understanding of biology remained limited to terrestrial forms. Think of it this way: if beings standing 8, 9, 10 feet tall, with elongated skulls and luminous eyes, with technology that could levitate massive stones and reshape matter through directed energy, if such beings appeared to Bronze Age humans, what words would those humans use to describe what they witnessed? Giants, gods, watchers, angels, the vocabulary of the divine, applied to experiences that transcended human understanding. Around 2200 BC, the construction ceased, not gradually, not due to changing priorities or resource depletion, but with the abruptness of a signal received, a protocol completed, a mission fulfilled according to specifications that originated far beyond human planning. The silence that followed was not abandonment, it was activation. The moment when Stonehenge began functioning according to its true purpose as a permanent interface between human consciousness and the vast intelligence network that monitors planetary development across the galaxy. The stone circle operates as more than passive monument. It functions as an active receiver, constantly scanning frequencies that exist beyond the range of human perception, maintaining a connection that has never been severed despite the passage of millennia. And here is where the story reveals its darker implications. Because contact between human and non-human intelligence always involves exchange. And the terms of that exchange were established long before humans possessed the knowledge to understand what they were agreeing to. The construction of Stonehenge represented humanity's first covenant with extraterrestrial intelligence, a binding agreement that granted advanced knowledge in return for something far more precious: access to human consciousness itself. The behavioral modifications encoded in religious ritual, the instinctive reverence humans feel when approaching ancient sites, the compulsive need to gather at stone circles during celestial events. These responses represent the activation of genetic programming introduced during the period of direct contact, ensuring that humans would continue to serve as willing participants in a cosmic experiment whose full scope remains hidden beneath layers of mythological interpretation. But Stonehenge was not alone in this ancient network. The global distribution of megalithic sites reveals the true extent of this conspiracy of stone, with stone circles, pyramid complexes, and temple structures appearing across every continent according to mathematical principles that suggest coordinated planning by a single intelligence working on a planetary scale. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, older than Stonehenge by 6,000 years, displays the same impossible precision, the same astronomical alignments, the same evidence of advanced construction techniques. Teotihuacan in Mexico, with its pyramids aligned to celestial coordinates that mirror Giza's orientation to Orion. Easter Island, where massive statues face the stars according to calculations that require understanding of Earth's axial precession. Each site represents a node in a communication grid designed to monitor and influence human development through the strategic application of technologies that operate at the intersection of consciousness and quantum mechanics. The alignments that connect these sites follow patterns that mirror the electromagnetic field lines that surround Earth, creating a planetary nervous system capable of transmitting information across vast distances without relying on conventional technology. Stonehenge occupies a crucial position within this network, functioning as a primary receiving station for signals that originate not just from other stone circles, but from sources that exist beyond the boundaries of our solar system. The recent discovery of massive underground structures surrounding Stonehenge, concentric rings of buried shafts that mirror the above-ground layout while extending far beyond its visible boundaries, suggests that the monument represents only the surface component of a much larger installation whose true function remains hidden beneath layers of earth and time. The perfectly circular arrangement of these subterranean features mirrors the frequency patterns generated by pulsars, celestial lighthouses that broadcast rhythmic signals across the galaxy like cosmic metronomes. This suggests that Stonehenge was designed to receive and amplify signals from specific cosmic sources whose regular broadcasts provide navigation data for intelligences traveling between star systems. The electromagnetic anomalies detected beneath the site indicate the presence of technology that remains active despite having been buried for thousands of years, powered by energy sources that draw directly from Earth's magnetic field through principles that conventional physics has yet to discover. This is not speculation. This is measurable phenomenon that defies every attempt at conventional explanation. Ground-penetrating radar reveals chambers beneath the central altar stone that no excavation has ever reached. Magnetometry detects metallic structures embedded in the foundation that predate any known metallurgy in the region. Seismic monitoring records vibrations that pulse in regular intervals, like a heartbeat, like a signal, like something alive beneath the stone. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Stonehenge mystery lies not in its ancient purpose, but in its continuing function as an active component of an intelligence network that has never ceased monitoring human development. The strange experiences reported by visitors to the site, episodes of missing time, auditory hallucinations, electromagnetic disturbances. These represent not imagination or folklore, but evidence of ongoing contact between human consciousness and intelligences that exist just beyond the threshold of normal perception. The increasing frequency of these encounters correlates directly with humanity's technological advancement, suggesting that our species is approaching a critical phase in our development that will trigger the next level of direct intervention by the intelligences that have been guiding our evolution since the construction of the first stone circle. Consider the timing. The proliferation of electromagnetic radiation from modern technology has created a planetary environment that resonates with the frequency bands originally used by the Stonehenge communication array. Every satellite transmission, every cellular phone call, every wireless internet signal contributes to a growing electromagnetic field that is systematically awakening the ancient network, preparing it for renewed contact with intelligences whose return has been anticipated by the stone circles for over 4,000 years. The timing of this reactivation appears to be coordinated with humanity's development of technologies that approach the level of sophistication required for direct communication with extraterrestrial intelligence. Our computers calculate at speeds that mirror the processing capabilities demonstrated by the ancient sites. Our satellites map Earth's surface with precision that matches the geometric accuracy of megalithic alignments. Our quantum experiments probe the boundaries between dimensions in ways that parallel the consciousness-altering technologies embedded in stone circle design. The implications of this convergence extend far beyond archaeology or even contact theory. Because if Stonehenge and its global network of associated sites represent active components of an extraterrestrial monitoring system, then human civilization itself may be approaching the culmination of an experiment that began with the first appearance of anatomically modern humans. The genetic modifications that produced our species' unique cognitive capabilities, the sudden appearance of symbolic thinking and artistic expression in the archaeological record, the inexplicable development of agriculture and metallurgy across multiple continents during the same narrow time period. These evolutionary leaps may represent not natural selection, but directed enhancement by intelligences whose agenda required the creation of a species capable of serving as conscious participants in a cosmic community. The stone circles represent the infrastructure of this ancient alliance, permanent installations designed to maintain communication between Earth and intelligences whose home lies among star systems too distant for conventional travel. But here is where the story takes its most shocking turn. Because what if every religion that followed was not born from human inspiration, but from fragments of this original contact protocol? What if the very concept of organized worship, of gathering in sacred spaces, of following divine commandments, represents humanity's unconscious attempt to recreate the conditions of our first encounter with non-human intelligence? Consider the striking parallels that appear across every major faith tradition. The circular gathering, always the circle. Christian churches built in the round. Islamic pilgrims circling the Kaaba. Buddhist meditation circles. Jewish temple courtyards designed around central points. Why does every culture instinctively organize sacred space in the same geometric pattern that defines Stonehenge? Because the circle was the original interface, the shape that optimizes human consciousness for contact with intelligences that perceive reality in dimensions beyond our three-dimensional limitations. The rituals themselves preserve the memory of technology we no longer understand. The chanting, the synchronized movement, the collective focus on a central point. These are not arbitrary religious practices. They are the behavioral protocols required to achieve the resonance frequency that opens human consciousness to non-local communication. Every hymn sung in harmony, every mantra repeated in unison, every prayer chanted by congregations recreates the conditions that once allowed direct neural interface between human minds and extraterrestrial intelligence. And the commandments, the sacred laws that appear in every tradition with such startling similarity. What if these were not moral guidelines revealed by an abstract deity, but operational instructions transmitted by beings whose survival depended on maintaining precise behavioral parameters in their human subjects? The prohibition against idol worship makes perfect sense if the intelligences required exclusive frequency access to human consciousness. Competing signals would interfere with the transmission. The emphasis on gathering regularly for worship ensures that the neural pathways for contact remain active across generations. The detailed dietary restrictions, the specific ritual purifications, the precise timing of holy days. These represent the biological and neurological conditioning required to maintain compatibility with non-human consciousness systems. But perhaps most telling of all are the descriptions of divine encounters that appear throughout religious scripture. Moses on Mount Sinai, encountering a burning bush that speaks but does not consume, receiving tablets carved by fingers not human, his face glowing with residual energy that blinds those who look upon him. Ezekiel's vision of wheels within wheels, of beings with multiple faces and wings covered in eyes, of craft that move in any direction without turning. Descriptions that read like technical manuals for advanced aerospace vehicles when stripped of theological interpretation. The transfiguration of Christ, where his appearance becomes luminous and his disciples are overcome by electromagnetic effects they describe as divine radiance. The ascension, a physical departure witnessed by multiple observers who describe him rising into clouds that obscure the mechanism of his departure. The road to Damascus, where Saul is struck down by a light so intense it causes temporary blindness. Hears a voice that others cannot hear. and emerges from the experience as a completely different person with knowledge he did not previously possess. These are not metaphorical experiences. They are technical descriptions of contact events, filtered through the vocabulary available to people who had no framework for understanding advanced technology. The burning bush was a plasma field interface. The tablets were data storage devices. The transfiguration was exposure to energy fields that alter human cellular structure. The ascension was extraction by spacecraft, whose departure was concealed by atmospheric manipulation. And if this is true, if religion itself is humanity's unconscious preservation of contact protocols, then every church, every temple, every mosque, every sacred site represents an attempt to recreate the conditions of Stonehenge, to rebuild the interface, to re-establish the connection. We gather in circles because circles focus consciousness. We chant and sing because frequency opens neural pathways. We follow ritual purifications because clean biological systems interface more efficiently with non-human technology. The priesthood, the initiated class that guards the sacred mysteries, may represent the bloodline descendants of the original contact subjects, humans whose genetic structure was modified during the ancient encounters, whose families were tasked with preserving the operational knowledge across generations until the time of return. The celibacy requirements in many traditions make sense if the goal was to preserve specific genetic markers rather than allow them to dilute through random reproduction. The elaborate hierarchies, the secret rituals known only to the inner circles, the hidden knowledge passed down through apostolic succession. These suggest a preservation system designed to maintain technological understanding disguised as religious mystery. And what of the prophecies that appear in every tradition? The return of the gods, the second coming, the end times when heaven and earth reunite, when the veil is lifted and divine beings walk again among humanity. These are not spiritual metaphors. They are countdown protocols, scheduling information, timetables for the next phase of direct contact, encoded in religious narrative to ensure the information survives across millennia. The Book of Revelation speaks of a new Jerusalem descending from heaven, a city made of materials that shine like precious stones and transparent gold, with gates that never close and light that comes not from sun or moon, but from the presence of divine beings. This reads like a technical description of an orbital habitat, a space station with transparent aluminum walls and fusion lighting, designed to interface with planetary civilizations during transition periods. The Hindu concept of yugas, vast cycles of time, during which divine beings periodically return to guide human development through critical phases. The Mayan calendar, with its precise calculations tracking not just earthly time, but cosmic cycles that align with galactic events. The Hopi prophecies describing sky beings who will return when humanity has developed the technology to communicate across vast distances. These traditions preserve the scheduling data for a contact program that operates on timescales far beyond individual human lifespans. And now we must confront the most disturbing possibility of all. Because if religion is humanity's unconscious preservation of contact protocols, then every time we gather for worship, every time we recite ancient prayers, every time we perform rituals whose origins we no longer remember, we may be sending signals, reactivating dormant systems, announcing our readiness for the next phase of the program. The approaching reactivation of this network suggests that humanity is reaching a level of development that will trigger the next phase of direct contact. But the terms of that contact remain subject to agreements made by our ancestors in exchange for the knowledge that lifted our species above the limitations of purely terrestrial evolution. The price of that original bargain may be coming due, and the payment may involve the surrender of human autonomy to intelligences whose agenda transcends anything our species can comprehend or resist. Yet within this cosmic framework lies a possibility that challenges every assumption about human destiny and extraterrestrial contact. Because what if the approaching reactivation of the Stonehenge network represents not subjugation, but graduation? What if the thousands of years of careful cultivation represent preparation for humanity's acceptance into a galactic community that operates according to principles our species is only now beginning to understand? The stone circles may be thresholds rather than prisons, designed to test whether human consciousness has developed sufficient wisdom to handle technologies that could either elevate our species to cosmic citizenship or destroy us through misapplication. The increasing electromagnetic activity surrounding ancient sites, the growing frequency of unexplained phenomena, the accelerating pace of technological development. These may be indicators that Earth is approaching the moment when the barriers between human and extraterrestrial consciousness will be permanently removed. But that moment will also represent a point of no return, because once the ancient network comes fully online, once the stone circles begin broadcasting at full capacity, once the intelligences that built them return to claim what was promised in the original covenant, humanity will discover whether we have evolved sufficiently to survive contact with minds whose capabilities exceed our own, by margins we cannot imagine. The answer to that question may be encoded in the stones themselves, waiting in the frequencies that pulse through the ancient network, calling across the centuries to intelligences whose response will determine whether human civilization represents a successful experiment or a failed prototype to be replaced by something better adapted to cosmic requirements. And now, as we stand on the edge of a technological age we barely control, as artificial intelligence calculates faster than human thought, as quantum computers probe the fabric of reality itself, as satellites map every grain of sand on Earth's surface, we must confront the possibility that our greatest discovery lies not in the stars we reach toward with desperate hope, but in the stones that have been watching us, waiting for us to remember what we promised them long ago, when the first humans looked up at the sky and wondered what was looking back. Because Stonehenge speaks, it always has, in frequencies that bypass human language and touch something deeper than conscious thought, in alignments that track not just the movements of celestial bodies, but the evolution of consciousness itself, in memories preserved in stone that remember what we have forgotten about our place in a cosmic story that began before our species existed, and will continue long after we have either transcended our limitations or been replaced by something more capable of fulfilling the purposes for which we were created. What if the greatest discovery we will ever make is not out there among the distant stars, but already answered us, long ago, through stone that remembers what we have forgotten about who we really are and why we are here?